Well, let's talk about a little bit about the Full House years. Did
Sure.
Jeff Franklin just call you and say, "Hey, Scott, we're getting the band back together. Do you want to do Fuller House? I mean, do you want to come back and play Steve Hale?"
It's a really funny. So basically, I was writing on this show at the time called Gallivant, which was like a musical on ABC. It was like a comedy musical,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a streaming show; it was a network show. But because we shot it in England and it was a musical, it wasn't written like a traditional sitcom where we would have to write the episode and send it off to England for them to shoot it. So there wasn't really much to do
Right.
when the writers were.
Right.
Once we were done, we were
You're
just
not
sort of.
punching up in the writers'
Yeah,
room.
they're not going to call you from 9 hours ahead and be like, "This joke isn't working. We need a new end of the scene or whatever." And so I was sort of hanging around, and they asked me to do the first episode of Fuller House, and I didn't even understand what it like a sitcom
So they
on
didn't say.
Netflix.
So they didn't say we want you to come back for the series. We just
No,
want
no,
you to do
no.
one
I was just
episode?
asked to do that one. They called it the reunion episode. It was like the pilot episode where there's a
Right.
party at DJ's house, and they were going to bring back the legacy cast, which was
Right.
remember they call because that was a polite way of saying the old people.
Yeah, I know. I was like, legacy.
I
Like,
know.
Come on.
But-
how
and-
about experienced?
But it was funny because they asked me to just be in that one episode, and in the original pilot script for Fuller House, I show up at the party. And there's DJ's old boyfriend Steve, and DJ says, "How are the wife and kids?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're great. Sorry they couldn't make it to the party."
Right.
And that night after the table read, I got an email from Jeff, and he said, "Hey, you were really funny at the table read today. I think I'm going to get rid of that stuff about your." He goes, "If it's cool with you, I'm going to get rid of that stuff about your wife and kid. Maybe we can bring you back someday. You could try to date DJ." I don't know if he said date. But I was like, yeah, sure, that would be great. I never thought it was actually going to happen.
Yeah, I never knew that story.
Yeah, it was just supposed to be one and done. And we've talked about this before. How I suck at auditions. I suck at high stakes situations in general. I'm like
Right.
the opposite of Tiger Woods. You know how like when the pressure's on, he gets better. I'm like if the pressure's on, I fall to pieces. So it was a very low stakes table read because I knew it was just the only one I was
Right.
ever going to be in. And I think as a result, I was like funnier at the table read than I had any right to be.
It's like Aladdin.
Exactly.
You just thought it was going to be a little tiny cartoon.
If I think it's no big deal, I remember I had this audition once for this commercial on the way to. It was literally like we didn't have time. We were on the way. I was on the way to the airport, but I swung by to do this audition, and I ended up getting it. And it was like this life-changing, like mega series of commercials. Whenever the stakes are low, that's when I shine. And so I did.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. Something's going to happen from you being on this show. That's how low the stakes are.
No,
for
no,
you.
I'm very
so
nervous.
You're going to be plucked by Spielberg.
to be like he's watching this, going
Yes,
for that new podcasting movie I wanted to do, that epic podcast.
absolutely. I'm bringing. Oh man,
I
We'll have a
wouldn't
whole-
have thought of him, but he's my guy.
The movie's called DJ's Upset.
But man, what an adventure! Do you remember that first week we were on the set of Fuller House, and it was like the
It was-
same set and the same
Yeah,
everything?
yeah. Let's talk about that because it didn't really seem that different to me. I
That's what
remember
was so weird about it.
I remember seeing the set. I cried. I came back to just check out the set. Like we were going to start in about a week or so. And I went back and I'm standing there in the bleachers and they're doing all the finishing the sets. And I was just by myself standing there and I thought, they always say you can never go back home again. And I was like, we're back home.
Yeah.
And I just thought, because we really were kind of one of the first sitcoms to come back.
Yeah, it started a trend, but we were one of the first.
It really did, but we were one of the first. And I remember I got so emotional, I just started crying.
Oh,
And
my God.
I sat there going, wow, there's our house.
Yeah. You know what I described it? It was like being somehow magically back in your childhood bedroom that you could never go back to. And you're just, and it feels like
Exactly.
a dream. The weirdest thing about it was that the first day felt like a dream. We were like bumping into the furniture. And then it got even weirder the second day when it was just like, oh, hey. And it was like
We're back home.
25 years hadn't
It
passed.
seemed like nothing had changed. The process really hadn't changed.
And they knew the audience felt the same way. That's why the promos in the very beginning didn't have any dialogue or anything. It was just pictures of the set.
I know.
Because they knew the audience would have that same feeling, and they did.
the famous couch, and like the material that,
I
that
love it.
chair, it's just like,
I
it
get the
was
chills
so-
just thinking about it. I think that's why it was such a massive hit when it came out. I mean, it's funny now because we just take it for granted that it was this massive hit, but at the time it made no sense, like to do a old-timey old-fashioned traditional sitcom on Netflix and all this stuff. You know, it was like a strange thing to try out, and I had no idea if it was going to be successful. But it came out, I guess, on a Friday.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
and it had such a huge audience, and nobody was ready for it, that when the ratings came out for regular television, they were like, where is everybody? Like, they thought something was broken. Like, the ABC, which had all of the sort of family shows on Friday night, had, like, the ratings inexplicably disappeared, and they didn't know where. And then they realized it was like the gravitational pull of Fuller House.
Here's the caveat to that. ABC passed on the show.
Shocking. That's
You know,
crazy.
they passed.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then we received an award several seasons later, and the award show was broadcast at ABC.
Oh my God.
I thought, oh boy,
This is weird,
Yeah,
yeah.
this was really weird. So now you're.
There's always stories like that.
I know. Showbiz. It's just such a thing. So now you're producing now, right?
Yeah, well, writing mainly. I mean, yeah, writing and producing TV shows.
But you're a writer producer.
Yeah. So I have a new show that I'm working
Hot
on.
shot. You're a big deal.
I mean, I don't even have time to be here. What am I doing? Is that for me? But I.
What do you like better, acting or writing?
You know, it's funny because my son asked me during Fuller House. He said, "So what are you going to do when the show's over?" And because he didn't think it was a cool job. He just like loved the show too. I said, "I guess when Fuller House ends, I'm going to go back to my regular job, writing TV shows." And he goes, "Why?" and I said, "What do you mean?" And he was little. He was probably 10 years old. He goes, acting seems way funner. And it is. I mean, being an actor on a successful sitcom is about the best job you could ever have in life.
It's the best job.
And, you know, but the only thing that sucks about it is getting the job. You know what I mean? When you're like working on a TV show, it's great. But like going out there and hustling and auditioning and trying to get your next hit sitcom job is torture.
Well, and you know, when you are a successful actor, it kind of, you know, pushes you in a direction where you get to do really successful podcasts like Full House Rewind.
Totally. Yeah, that's the dream.